Gert, welcome on the podcast. You are the certified AWS Hero, so I'm super excited to learn from your experience. You are also a solution architect, or actually an enterprise SecDevOps lead, right? So now, just with these two different roles or the two different chairs you are sitting at the same time, we could probably elaborate about all these different roles within the IT world. There are so many different roles. People may be a bit lost. So can you just tell us a bit more about these roles? What are you up to?
Well, the way I understand it is indeed DevOps is more about culture, and I think Google tries to explain it with site reliability engineer is the implementation of DevOps. So where you make it DevOps, you could see more as something which is abstract, but again, it's a flexible term. And site reliability is like you implement all those practices in your job. Then I think you also said it, you have SecDevOps, DevSecOps. There, it took me a while to figure it out because I never Googled it, but if you Google it, it's where you put the emphasis. So if you say SecDevOps, your emphasis on security. And so that's the explanation I got from the internet, which makes sense. But to be frankly, I don't care that much, which maybe brings you to what I do, which is, as you said, enterprise SecDevOps lead. The way we see that role is guiding the non-functionals. So the non-functionals, some call it quality attributes, meaning, the quality of your software. And then we focus, on every aspect, being resiliency, cost efficiency, security. How that compares, for example, to give you, again, the stuff I know most about in AWS, that's typically the 6 pillars. 3 of them, well, we focus on 3 of them. The other is like, I think there is one like sustainability, which is, not that tangible, which is a little bit fluffy. And then you have also like operational excellence. But I think more or less, if you focus on those 3 things like cost, security, cost efficiency, well, it has to do with operational excellence in a way, I guess.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that based on where you put the stress, you can reshuffle some of the keywords, and it just reminds me
Yeah.
how complicated the whole IT world is, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, because if you look at it also there, where in business software we talk about priorities, you need to choose. Even with quality attributes, take security, resiliency, cost efficiency. Also there you maybe need to prioritize. For an example, is it more important to scale fast or to build software fast? Or maybe it's wiser to put security in top of it and first focus on security, and often they also collide a little bit with them. So also if you look to software and you talk about quality, also there probably you need to prioritize which things, because security and cost efficiency often they fight a little bit, because security, it costs money. You don't see an immediately effect on your business. For business, there is not that much value in it as long as everything goes well. So
Yeah.
you see, it's interesting to see.
But
That,
now,
yes,
with all these attacks and the malicious software, it must be also difficult to lead the discussions with the business people, right? You just mentioned that they may not see the value in security until something happens, right? And when
yeah,
something happens, it's already too late to
yeah.
mitigate the risk. So, based on your experience, what does it look like? How do you find a way to engage with those business professionals?
Two things, and I must say I don't the first has to do with autonomy, which I'm a very liberal person, but I will tackle that maybe secondly. The first thing is like, well, to some extent, and I always use the metaphor of a car, like you can go to a garage, you can buy a new car, but you can pick whatever car you want, but well, the law will say that it needs a seat belt, it needs an airbag, it needs to be cost efficient. There will be some aerodynamics and stuff like that. There will be something, resiliency will be built in. If you have a flat tire, maybe you have run flat tires. So if you look to a car, yeah, you can't just have the bare minimum. It has the resiliency, cost efficiency, and security built in without offering you a choice as a buyer. The same should stand for software quality. Okay, every company needs to define what their baseline is, what their minimum baseline quality is. But business can't just decide on has it to be secure. They can yell something about recovery time objective and recovery point objective, but they also should know what the price is they need to pay for that. Because if you would ask like what is the allowed uptime, they will also say that it never goes down, but that comes with a price. And even you must see that it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to make your software more resilient than the Wi-Fi network where it runs on, like that. So it's a very complex story. What we've learned that is like, don't open that door to business. You just ask them like, hey, what is the feature you want us to build? But you don't ask anything about the quality attributes. You just see that your teams implement it with the right quality attributes in mind.
Mhm.
When it comes, yeah,
Yeah, that's very interesting. It reminds me of these cars, as you mentioned, with the car seat belts. You don't really ask
no,
the manufacturer whether they want or not. It is
no,
just taking as
yeah,
a
yeah.
prerequisite.
Yeah, and it could be cheaper, and you could for yourself maybe say like, yeah, I don't need it, I take the risk. But you also like take for example, I don't know, ABS, auto brake system or something like that. Well, if you think you don't need it, it could be that you maybe at some point are the cause of an accident because you didn't have that safety measure in it. And that's the same with security in software. Eh? Maybe you think you don't need it, but if you open a door to your complete company where the ransom attack starts with you, and maybe you don't develop a business critical system, maybe it's not that big of a deal that we lose that single account. But if it ripples through the complete company, then it's a complete different story. And maybe you weren't aware that all those doors were there for some reasons. So that's why we are like very strict on that baseline. There is like a famous evangelist, we call him Uncle Bob. If you look it up, Uncle Bob, about software craftsmanship, he always say we don't ship shit in that wording. So yeah, that's it. We should be assertive enough as a developer also to say like, hey, no, that's not the quality we stand for a software, so we don't deploy it.
Hmm. And this, I guess, you can do if you are speaking to the business people higher up in the pyramid, right? In a corporate environment. So who are the people most responsive and people who are willing to take your advice in the corporate world? Who are the people who see the value in what you offer them with regards to the security and scalability and resiliency?
So we have like so first of all, I think it's very important if you take a philosophy like that, if you want a channel for quality assurance in your software quality assurance in the company, it should be backed all the way up. So the CTO, the complete management should give you some kind of mandate to guard that. If it's just something without that if it's not carried by management, then probably it won't fly. But really, how in the company I currently work for, how we made it is, first, we are that big, like over 1,000 people, like maybe 100 teams, something like that. And then every team is grouped by a business unit. We call them areas. And there is a lead, something I do on the enterprise level in every area. And he's responsible for the quality assurance within his area. And maybe in his area, he has someone in every team, which is his team in that area then. But the thing is, how it works is that if he stumble upon quality which is not at level, he should be able to start conversations to mitigate that with his area manager. His area manager is the one which is responsible, and he should start conversations like, hey, why is this the case? How should we mitigate it? And then either he's satisfied with the answer from his area manager, that he can invest time, that people will be hired to solve the issue, or he's unsatisfied. And if he's unsatisfied, I come in the loop. I take conversations with them. And then if I am unsatisfied, we escalate it another level, all the way to the top, to the CTO, where we really always blameless, and always convinced of the good intention of people, that we try to understand why it is. Maybe at some point, and it could be that that there are other priorities. Maybe we say like, hey, for this piece, we have an advantage to ship very fast, but with low security. Then maybe we go for isolation, but then it's also put in a risk log. So our company has a big risk log. So we also, because we want agility as well, we want to, maybe at some point we want to take a risk. But then it has to be written down. So it's either it's fixed, either we are all satisfied, we are on the same line about the quality, or it's on a risk log.
Very interesting that there is a risk log, because it's common to have the legacy code board with some parts of the code that need to be improved, but with the security log, like that's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's also not something like, well, you could now start thinking, well, I hacked the system, I put everything on a risk log. But it's like, really, it's going all the way to the top, like every 3 months. Even in a big company, all the things there are discussed, and you have to come up as a manager at every level with a very good reason why it is on there and why it is still on there. So, because it's an acceptable risk, but it could be quite high. So it's not like that free of just saying I put it on a risk log. No.
Cool. And what happens in situations when the business people mitigate or neglect the risks? So if they neglect the risks in favor of the agility, as you mentioned, if they don't want to kind of prioritize it, it's clear that you put it on the log. But what else? Like, do you have any examples from the past when, I don't know, something negative happened? What are some examples of situations when the risk was neglected?
Well, we never had like a huge incident, because I think we really try to avoid having big risk on a risk log. We don't really we don't really have. So it's I think we're all working with good manners and taking it into account. What we see, and where I would suffer with. So either we have a risk which we didn't indicate, and then it's fine, is maybe not the good wording. Well, I understand that we probably just overlooked it. It could happen to anyone. Where I would really struggle with is if you like deliberately didn't mention any risk, or know what the risks are and then neglecting them. That would be like, but I also think in our culture, so we have a very open culture, that you also know that probably this will hurt you if they find out. So people, well, I believe in the good of people. they don't do it, and that would be really terrible. But again, if we are always, I always try to be blameless. If there is one thing we do good in this company with every post-mortem, because we have incidents, more than maybe something goes down, not a security incident, but like maybe a system goes down, it's never the person. We never try to blame the person. If you deployed something wrong, then the problem is that the tests were not good, or you had the ability to do something wrong. That like this, there is this anecdote which I find very interesting, and at some point, one of the most critical and stable services of AWS is Amazon S3, is their document store, and it's very stable, and availability never hurt it. But you have you have durability, and there you have a lot of nines, and then you have availability. The availability is actually not that high, so some people didn't know. They always think about durability. That is like, if there is an incident, if the data becomes unavailable, it is still stored. So as soon as a service is up, your data will never be lost. So I'm pretty sure you will never lose data on S3. But if you look to the numbers, it can have some downtime each month, which is still acceptable. And for that is, for some people, maybe mind-blowing. What I want to say about blameless is, at some point the system, I think 2070, goes down. And it was a person who executed the script, and by accident, it was something like, there was a parameter which says, like, do this concurrent 10 times. And he made a typo, and he said something like it was 96, or almost, he executed the script for like 100 times concurrently. The system broke. The learning is not, hey, person, why did you do it? The learning is, the system should not accept a parameter above a certain threshold. It should never be able to execute a script with a number that breaks the service. So also for us, we don't, if people deploy something to production and the thing goes down, it's not the people to blame. It's like, how was it possible that indeed your test didn't fail? Did you have to write tests? So we're always looking for that, always in everything. So blameless there, but also to security. If we have an incident, well, I don't try to blame the people. Most of the time is because they didn't knew what the impact was, or there was a security hole.
And this is extremely powerful, actually, this culture of blameless.
Yes.
That's just awesome. I could imagine this across the board, even applying this rule in a family setup, right? Because
Yeah.
often kind of,
Yeah.
in the back of the mind, I may be blaming, my wife or my kids for not doing something, or doing something probably, but we can apply this concept across the board. That's just so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
indeed.
Thinking about this resiliency that you just also mentioned along the lines, how you know how does it work with AWS or within the company? Um, like, what if something happens? Like, how far do you think about the scenario of everything going down, setting up some completely new environment? Like, is this something you also prepare for? Is this something you have as a backup plan? Is this something you test every year?
This is a really nice one. So first of all, again, it's a business decision. Well, business needs to, so I think it boils down to objectives. And for AWS, most of the time they work with recovery time objective and recovery point objective. Recovery time objective is how fast should my software be up and running. Recovery point objective is how much data is allowed to lose. So you would say, I can be up. So let's say my database goes down. I can put back a backup immediately. So I'm up running within the half an hour, but I lose a day of data because my backup only runs once at night. So to give you an example how they relate, often, and then it's become really funny, the better you want to do on the recovery time, the worse you do on the recovery point. Because there are nifty systems in AWS who say like, yeah, they call it PTR, point in time recovery, where you say like, I take like backups every minute, every second. But if you want to restore it, it takes much more time than a nightly snapshot. So you should really think about it like, yeah, do I want to recover faster without with losing data, or do I want to recover slower without data losing? So it's a very complex thing, and test it thoroughly. I've seen people making backups for years, and then they've set this recovery time objective. So they say, I will recover in 10 minutes. Then they have a dysfunction in the database. They try to restore it. Restoring the backups takes 8 hours. So you never test it. So that's a huge learning.
Mm.
And secondly, to make it even more complex, what is a recovery and what is a failure? I give you an example. I work in a media company. We serve a digital newspaper. If we screw up a backend service, no new updates will. This is an example. This is a scenario. We have a content delivery network. So like Akamai, CloudFront, stuff like that, where it's a huge cache worldwide serving your content. If they call it in terminology the origin, if we, where the news comes in, we don't update our CDN network, no, because it's down, then when becomes your content stale? Because the newspaper will always there, but there will no new updates. And if this is happening, let's say 2 o'clock at night, nobody will notice for maybe 2 or 3 hours. When there is like an incident like 9/11, after 5 minutes not getting updates, the whole world will know that you are down. But so your business needs to define what is up and what is down, because there is a big nuance. For some, it could be a 404 and it's right in your face. For us, there will be always content, but it could be stale. It could be outdated because our backend is down. Another example about resiliency. Let's say, let's take, well, I'm going to make it more tangible. Netflix. You land on their homepage, you get personalized content. Personalized content is difficult to cache. So let's say that they struggle to keep up with traffic. At some point, they could decide to give your homepage not a personalized look, because the personalization service is down. So all of a sudden, you come on this, some people will not notice it. Are you then down because personalization is gone? There are even scenarios where they say, like, if the paywall goes down, we serve free content because we don't want to impact our paying users. And the side effect is that a non-paying user are getting free content for a certain amount of time. Is that a failure? I don't know. So it's even more philosophical one, like, what is a failure? What is a recovery?
Yeah. Very interesting cases. I've never thought about this.
Yeah.
This way, but really interesting. I mean, it could be down the server, but because you get some other content, it feels like it is up.
Yeah. So today there is a lot of personalization and paywalls, and so there's resiliency built in on every layer. So we try to be, there are like terminology for that. It's also called a brownout. So like graceful degradation, you could see like that, like not just give that 404 that service down, but try to do it in a way that that people don't notice. Like for us, it could be advertisement. Like it's a huge money stream, but if it go down, the newspaper should be there. We will just lose money because we couldn't serve advertisements, but people can still read the newspaper. They will be happy maybe because the advertisement is gone.
You will get
So
a brand at least.
let's see. But the company would make, then the people, the customers wouldn't see it as a failure. We probably would see it as a big failure. So you see.
There is always a trade-off, as you said,
Yeah,
between the recovery time and
yeah,
the speed. That's very
yeah,
interesting. Very interesting. And for this, just coming back to what we actually started with, are there any specific roles that also, in the large organization are responsible for this part of the technology? I mean, you started with the solution architect, DevSecOps, SecOps, or SecDevOps.
yeah.
Um, are there some other IT roles that come to your mind?
Well, we have like two, you could call it community streams or communities. That's first the SecDevOps community. And then we call it Spectre. It's the architecture. So they are more towards architecture with architecture decision records and stuff like that. And there should be a good cooperation between both. On the other hand, that's maybe also interesting to mention. So we're a big company, but we are doing you build it, you run it. It's a terminology. I think Werner Vogels, the CTO of AWS, came up with the term, I think also 2015, 2014, or even 2012, something like that. And it says like, you build it, you run it. It's not only you build it, but you run it. Once it's in production, you are responsible to maintain it. Now, it has all to do with another philosophy from Spotify, which is aligned autonomy. And so we try to keep those in balance. Let me explain. So if you want to have a team fully responsible for their software, they are like, hey, I want to take that responsibility as long as I can decide how to build it. It would be very awkward if you say like, hey, you built that car and you are responsible for how it is built, because the guy says like, yeah, but they decided to do it this and that way, and that's not good. So you would have a lot of tension. So you can only get that responsibility if you allow people the autonomy to build it the way they're built. Otherwise, they will always find an excuse to say like, yeah, but I couldn't decide upon. And now we say like, hey, no excuse. You decided how to build it. So the thing is, so that we give a lot of autonomy. So I'm also a very liberal person in a way that it's most of the time, if I ask why they took a certain decision, the only bad answer is they can't explain it, or the explanation is like, because I like it. But if they can come up with any good reason, like that database has that advantage and in our context, then I'm totally fine with it. Does it has a trade-off? Again, that has one. So we have a lot of snowflakes, and then you are people yelling like, yeah, but if we all do the same, we have a lot of interchangeability. And I'm like, is it? Does a data engineer all of a sudden wants to work for the finance department because they're using the same tools? No. He's into data. He's not into fin tech and stuff like that. So I don't believe there is much value in this interchangeability. I also don't see people within a company change a lot. Of course, there are people who have a growth path and who grow within a company, but it's not that like it's a huge argument.
Yeah.
And I see like, if you take for so and in the companies that I work for, where you build it, you run it, they take it very seriously. If our newspaper would have an incident Saturday night 2 a.m. without people getting paid, so there is no on call and stuff like that, if that goes down, within 30 minutes it's fixed, because the team will get noticed and they will like get out their beds or stop from the party, drive home and fix it. But
No.
because they feel that
Yeah.
responsibility.
They also care more,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
So they know it. So they know it. I say like, and it's the same. So we score. So that's something I didn't touch. So we score our quality. We measure our quality. You need, so on a scale to 5, you need to get 4 out of 5 to be in the green. If the teams are in the green, they're free to do whatever they want, because we are like, you're doing it good. There is no reason to interfere. If you get in the orange, or if you drop below the 4, we start conversation. And if you're too long there, we will say like, yeah, well, you can't cope with that freedom. You can't cope with that responsibility. Sorry, we will do it for you. It never happened, but people know, like, hey, with freedom comes responsibility.
This is a very nice way to score people, teams this way with the scorecard. That's awesome. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we covered a lot during this discussion. So I especially like your contribution regarding the business. How to work with the business people and get them see the value of security and building resiliency, and not give them the option to say no. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Cool. So before we wrap it up, where can people connect with you and find you on the social media or Amazon website or somewhere?
Well, if they type in Gert Leenders, so they will probably find the AWS Hero page, some as a first page. I think my LinkedIn details are on there as well. I blog also on you will find that website. It's called Element 7. There you will find my blog. Most of the time it's towards there are funny blog posts. It's about feature stuffing and stuff like that. Like, always filling your sprints planning with functional stuff and non-functional stuff. So I try to write a lot. There is also something which I'm trying to kick off, and but it's a little bit too soon, and it's going to be a website about how to move to the cloud, how to move to AWS, where I will tend to be, it's not going to be technical, but where I also will explain, like, hey, decisions from day one, this is what you should do, things like that. But that's for the upcoming months, and maybe we can do like a second session if that one is released, or if that one is made public, something like that.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Yeah, so I also like the idea of this website, which will be probably tailored towards business people. So
Management. Well, I don't see myself as a manager, but really those, like, how can you? Like, when I look back to all my experience, like, there are definitely some lessons that I've learned, which I would like to share.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. I'll include these links in the episode show notes, also on YouTube in the comments. So
yes,
thanks again for sharing, and
okay.
to see you soon
Thank you.
again.
Okay, bye.